of Representative Thomas Massie in Kentucky's 4th District. Absolute blowout. And it came as a bit of a surprise. If you looked at the betting markets or the polling, it seemed that right up until end of last week that Thomas Massie might have safely carried the primary race for his nomination in his district against his opponent, Ed Gallrein. But in the last 72 hours, just about, all of the numbers flipped, basically overnight. And I think this was the result of early voting numbers that started to come in yesterday. Gave us an idea of what the turnout would look like. And then today, we finally got the result. Results came in, and almost immediately it was clear that Thomas Massie would lose. He was defeated by about 10%, and he conceded the race earlier in the night. This was the single most expensive congressional primary in American history. And Massie pointed this out at a rally tonight. 250 years of U.S. history, this is literally the most expensive in terms of advertising spending. It is the most expensive congressional primary in the history of the United States, over $32 million. And this is for a district that Trump carried by 40 points. So this is as red as it gets. Northern Kentucky, Trump won by over 40%. And yet there was $33 million spent trying to figure out who would be the nominee. And the big takeaway, obviously, is that this was not really about Thomas Massie and Gallrein, who won the nomination. This was a proxy war between the Israel lobby and America First. Why did all this money flow into the district, and from where did it flow? It came from the Israel lobby. It came from the Republican Jewish Coalition. It came from AIPAC. It came from Paul Singer and Miriam Adelson. These are all Israel First Jewish groups and individuals, and they have had it out for Thomas Massie for years, especially in the past 2 years because of his opposition to the war in Iran, opposition to foreign aid to Israel, and his support for the release of the Epstein files. So they poured all their Jewish money into the district to bury him, and they succeeded. In the end, it was older voters who comprised the vast majority of the electorate that broke very strongly for Gallrein, in support of Trump, in support of this money that came in, and it was the young people, far fewer in number, that went for Thomas Massie. So tonight, we're going to talk all about it. We're going to talk about the results. Like I said, we're going to break it down by age. If there's any white pill from the race, it is that the young people voted for Massie. And what does that tell you? Everybody under the age, I have it right here actually, every demographic cohort under the age of 56 broke very strongly for Massie. And the younger you go, the more they supported Massie, the bigger the disparity. So if there is any room for optimism, if there is any hope for the future, it is that the older GOP primary voters, which unfortunately is most of them, they are on their way out. And they seem to be the only ones that are falling for this stuff. It is this Fox News contingent. They worship Trump. They are either ambivalent about Israel, but more likely than not, they absolutely support Israel. But it seems that almost everybody under the age of 50, under the age of retirement, is America First. And like I said, the younger, the more pro-Massie they were. So we'll talk about some of the crosstabs. We'll talk about the breakdown in terms of age. We'll talk about this narrative about Trump and Israel. And this is the big thing that I want to get into, because the takeaway from this race is really an interesting litmus test. How you interpret this and what you think the real story is kind of says it all. Because on social media, for example, on Twitter, I see absolutely everybody from our circles saying the obvious, which is, what is the takeaway from the race? Well, Thomas Massie opposed Israel, so then it became the most expensive primary in history because all this Jewish money came in to try to unseat him. And that is about as Simple and transparent as it could possibly be. Why was he unseated? Because he went against a foreign country, so they poured money in and they made an example out of him. And they wanted to send a very strong message to any other Republican that might be considering opposing Israel that they have unlimited money. They have unlimited money, unlimited clout, and if you go against them, you will surely lose your seat. So if you want a future in politics, if you want to hang on to your seat, then you better not go against them. And I think that is just obvious. That is just common sense. Does nobody see this is the most expensive race? All the money is coming from Jewish donors and groups. Does nobody see what is obviously taking place here? So that's one narrative, and I see that all over Twitter. Simultaneously, and this is something we have to contend with a little bit, I'm sure you've also seen all of the pro-Trump influencers like Jack Posobiec and Michael Knowles and the people at Daily Wire and Stephen Miller and Randy Fine, a sitting congressman, all of the pro-Trump politicians, party loyalists, influencers, guys like Captive Dreamer, emblematic of them, they're all saying something completely different. And I told you that this is what they would do. All of them, the White House and the mainstream media, they have a completely different take on this. They say, why did Thomas Massie lose? Well, it's not because the Jews injected $33 million to punish him for voting against foreign aid. They say this is a referendum on Trump's influence over the party. They have a very different take. They say that Trump pointed at the district, pointed at Massie, said he wanted him to lose, and so he lost. Thomas Massie was disloyal to Trump, pissed Trump off. Trump went against Massie, hand-selected a primary opponent, and Trump got his way. So the real message is not go against Israel, lose your seat. The message is go against Trump, you lose your seat. But they take it further. And they say, which votes did Thomas Massie commit to? In what way did Thomas Massie vote that made Trump upset? They say, well, Massie didn't vote for the big, beautiful bill. And what was contained in the big, beautiful bill? Well, $200 billion for DHS to secure the border and carry out mass deportations. So they take it further and say, not only did Massie upset the president, not only was he disloyal to the party and voted against the party's agenda, but they say he voted against border security and mass deportations. So he was a left-wing, open borders traitor who went against the president, and so the president used his immense influence over the party and the base to throw him out. And this is what the media says, and this is what the Trump and party loyalists are saying. They say it's all about Trump. And I told you last night, if you watch my show, I predicted that to the letter. I said that is exactly what they were going to say. I said it looks like, more likely than not, Massie's going to lose, and when he does...
What makes this crazy is that this is how politicians swayed the narrative, because it just so happens that mass deportations, that was in the bill. But what was also in the bill was crazy amounts of spending and hiring our national debt that was already high. That's what he really voted down. But since that other stuff was in there, he gets lumped in to, oh, he doesn't want mass deportations. He's just a Democrat. He's a Republican, but he's really a Democrat, true and true. So this is how they spin it. It's really, really corny how they do it.
That's the line they're going to go with. And by the way, that's what the history books will record. When we move on from this in 6 months, 12 months, when we're talking about even 2028, we'll be talking about the midterms very soon, and then, of course, we'll be talking about 2028. It will be a huge question how much influence Trump retains, especially as he becomes increasingly unpopular. And this will be an example this day and all the other races that took place. This will be used as a talking point to say, Trump still has this influence. Take a look at what happened to Massie. And it's not enough to simply say, it was Israel, the Jews did it, Israel. We have to contend with what the media and what the party loyalists are going to say, because mark my words, And listen to me now. Hi, I'm talking to you if you're watching the show live or the replay. Mark my words. You will hear this from your boomer dad. You will hear this from your boomer uncle. You will hear this from your conservative coworkers. You will hear this from some numbnuts in your group chat who's vaguely conservative. They will say, no, it has nothing to do with Israel. It's all about how Massie went against Trump. Massie is this left-wing anti-Trumper. What did he expect to happen? He went against Trump in a district that Trump carried by 40 points. That's just the obvious. It's got nothing to do with that. You will be contending with this tomorrow. I promise you. I promise you. You will be dealing with this in the break room. You'll be dealing with this in the group chat. You'll be dealing with this the next time you talk to your dad. And you know that's true. Now that I've said it, you'll know this.
So, yeah. So, Thomas Massie pretty much just got screwed. If you got the money, you can get the vote. You know, so it's a rigged system. It's he didn't take any AIPAC money, and you see what happened. He got crushed, and the betting market said he was going to win at the beginning. So there you have it. And usually they're not wrong. They're in it to make money. That was a huge swing, so we'll see how it goes. It definitely, I don't even know who this guy is. I've never even seen this guy. But damn, that's a blow right there. That if you got the money, you can sway the votes. Like, follow, subscribe, and peace.